Welcome to Flipping Your Classroom, Part 1, Making the Shift. You may have realized that this session is unlike a traditional workshop. This will be a flipped PD session. The intent is that you will watch these videos in order, completing the workbook as you go. Then, we will meet face-to-face during your school summer PLE training. At the face-to-face meeting, we will check for understanding and practice creating and storing videos. As you watch the video, keep the following norms in mind. Pause, rewind, or watch as many times as you wish. Complete the Flipping Your Classroom workbook as you go through this presentation. Pause the presentation to allow you time to respond on your workbook to questions posed throughout the presentation. Also, feel free to pause the presentation to write any questions you may have throughout the presentation. First, let's watch this introductory video that gives a basic overview of flipped learning. When it's over, pause this video and write down your own definition of flipped learning and one benefit of using this instructional technique in your Flipping Your Classroom workbook.
This is a classroom. The teacher stands at the front, and the students watch and listen. You'll recognize this because it's probably how you were taught and how your parents were taught before you. But there are a lot of problems with this approach to teaching. You see, not all students learn at the same speed, so some get left behind. And while some students learn better by listening, others may learn better by doing. This means that teachers can't always do the best job they can. But there is another way. The flipped classroom addresses these problems and makes learning more personal. First, the teacher makes a video that delivers the content they'd usually teach in class. Then they share it online with students who can watch it before the next lesson. This leaves the teacher free to spend class time leading activities that help students apply the knowledge. Students can rewind and re-watch a video as many times as they like and come back to class with questions for the teacher. So keeping up with the class is no longer an issue. Students can access the video at any time using mobile devices, giving them the ability to learn more independently. Instead of sitting and listening, students can spend class time applying knowledge in more practical ways. And teachers are free to spend their time working with students and giving them individual support and attention. The flipped classroom model is already making a difference to students and teachers worldwide, so get involved. Discover more at flippedinstitute.org.
Section 1, Introduction to Flip. In this section, we will discuss what flipped learning is, the 4 pillars of flipped learning, and the benefits of implementing flipped learning into your classroom. When using a flipped model, we are moving away from this, sit and get learning environment, to this, a more interactive and collaborative learning environment. In a traditional classroom, time must be divided between going over the previous night's homework, teaching new concepts, teaching how to apply these new concepts, and practicing the new concept. In a flipped classroom, the new concept is done for homework, so more time is left for practicing and applying the new concept in the classroom, where teachers can help correct any misconceptions or guide students to advanced applications. The Flipped Learning Network gives the following definition of flipped learning. Flipped learning is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. The Flipped Learning Network distinguishes the flipped classroom from flipped learning. You can flip your classroom by having students read text out of class, watch supplemental videos, or do other activities that are normally done in the classroom. However, for flipped learning to occur, teachers must incorporate what they call the 4 pillars of flipped learning. Flipped learning is compiled into 4 distinct pillars: flexible environment, learning culture, intentional content, and professional educators. First, let's define each pillar. Flexible environment means that the teacher customizes the space, how and when the content is delivered, and assessment to meet the needs of the students. In learning culture, teachers will create a culture of learning versus a culture of teaching, meaning that the teacher is no longer the focus of the classroom. The teacher is no longer lecturing for a majority of the class time on a particular skill. Instead, the student becomes the focus of the classroom by incorporating more student-to-student and student-to-teacher interaction, thus turning a teacher-centered culture into a culture that is centered around the student. Throughout intentional content, a teacher in a flipped classroom may either create or acquire quality content. As students are watching videos or accessing other resources for homework, the teacher can assign content that is based on the needs of learners. In this way, teachers can personalize learning for individual students. In the last pillar, professional educator, teaching does not have to be a solitary endeavor. Professional educators network in person and online. They collaborate with their school, their district, and other educational communities. Networking and collaborating with other educators can help teachers find resources and plan better lessons. All 4 pillars are directly related to GCS's PLE triangle. Now that we have defined each pillar, let's see where they fit. Flexible environment obviously correlates to flex the environment. Students are learning skills outside the classroom walls. Inside the classroom could look different as well. Students can participate in small groups to get support or to enrich their understanding. Learning culture correlates to know the learner. You have to know your learners to understand what their needs are relating to how they learn and what they need support with. This also encompasses creating an atmosphere where students feel safe to express their ideas and knowledge. Intentional content correlates to guide with standards. Teachers must know the content they teach, the process involved in explaining the content so that all students have an understanding, and knowing the resources they want to use to support student understanding. Professional educator is connected to all 3 parts of the PLE triangle: know the learner, guide with standards, and flex the environment. Being part of a professional learning community allows you to express your ideas regarding how students learn, the content you teach, the resources to be used, and how and when you want to teach it. At some point in your educational career, you probably have thought of one of the following, if not all of them. I want to spend more one-on-one time with my students. I want students to have ownership of their learning. I want to sit down with them when they are struggling. Flipped learning can help you put these thoughts into motion. John Bergman and Aaron Sams, pioneers of flipped learning, give several benefits of the flipped classroom in their book, Flip Your Classroom, Reach Every Student in Every Class, Every Day. Today's students have been raised in a digital world, and when they come to school, they frequently have to power down. Flipping speaks to the digital language of today's students. Students who are involved in sports or other extracurricular activities are often pulled out of class for competitions. Flipping the classroom helps these busy students to make sure they get all of the necessary information. This is also helpful for students who are sick. In a traditional classroom, the students that get the most attention are usually the best and the brightest. In a flipped classroom, the teacher is able to spend time with the student who needs them the most. The flipped model is great for exceptional students. Those with learning disabilities can watch the videos over and over, pause and rewind until they get the concept, and can get extra help in the classroom. Accelerated learners can also benefit, as they can move ahead at their own pace with the guidance of the teacher. Because classroom time is for application, the flipped classroom allows for more student-teacher interaction as well as student-student interaction. This added interaction helps teachers to know their learners better. Since the teacher will be moving throughout the class, seeing how students are doing with the application of material and the needs and preferences of the learners, it allows for real differentiation. A lot of behavior problems in a traditional classroom come from students who are bored or struggling and too embarrassed to say anything. Many times, those students in the traditional classroom find that the flipped classroom engages them more and gives them more opportunity to get help when needed. Classroom management is still important, and classroom norms and procedures must still be taught, but they are different than those in a traditional classroom. If you're spending time trying to keep your students quiet, you're working against relationship building. In a traditional classroom, many parents want to know if their students are listening, following directions, etc. In a flipped classroom, the real question becomes, is my student learning? According to Bergman and Sams, many parents even watch the videos with their students so that they can better help them and in the process learn a little themselves. This makes the classroom a little more transparent, as anyone can see what is being taught to students in a flipped classroom if the videos are posted in a public place. Last but not least, absent teachers no longer have to rely on the sub, who may or may not be familiar with the material to teach it. Because you read a book or attended this session on flipped learning is not a reason for you to flip your classroom. Don't get us wrong, we want you to flip your classroom, but only if it's right for you. Make sure you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. It's not ideal to flip your course because you think it will create a 21st century classroom. Flipping your classroom is much easier with technology, but using technology doesn't make it a 21st century classroom. As Bergman and Sams say in their book, pedagogy should always drive technology, never the other way around. We all want to be that cutting-edge teacher, but note that flipping does not necessarily use the latest technology. If you believe that flipping your classroom exempts you from being a good teacher, you're wrong. Teaching is much more than content delivery. In fact, you don't even have to deliver the content yourself, but you do have to know what good content delivery is and how to apply it for each student. And if you think flipping your classroom will make your job easier, then this is not an ideal practice for you. It will change your job, allowing you to make the most of your face-to-face time. That's not easier. It takes a lot of work to make it happen. Please take the time to respond to the questions in Section 1 of your workbook. You may continue on to Section 2 or take a break and continue at a later time. Just make sure to complete all 3 sections before we meet face-to-face.